I still remember the exact moment when 15 years of marriage shattered like a mirror dropping onto marble floor. We were in Tuscany, celebrating what was supposed to be our anniversary with a family vacation. The late afternoon sun painted the vineyard in shades of gold, but the beauty of the moment was lost on me as James's words cut through the air like a perfectly sharpened knife. "You're a designer amateurs play at," he said, swirling his wine glass with the same practiced elegance he used to charm fashion magazine editors. "Nobody takes your work seriously, Clara. It's cute that you try, but let's be realistic. You're embarrassing yourself." Our children, Emma and Lucas, sat frozen at the other end of the long wooden table, their pasta untouched. At 16 and 14, they were old enough to understand the cruelty in their father's words, young enough to still be shocked by it. I watched Emma's hand close around her fork until her knuckles turned white, while Lucas stared intently at his plate, shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself invisible. The thing about emotional abuse is how it creeps up on you, disguised as love, as protection, as expertise. James had been in the fashion industry for 20 years, his name synonymous with luxury and innovation. I had always been James Morrison's wife, the former model who gave up her career to support his dreams, to raise his children, to be the perfect accessory at his shows. But what he didn't know, what he had never bothered to notice, was that for the past 3 years, I had been secretly taking online courses in fashion design. Late at night, after everyone was asleep, I would sketch designs, study textile manufacturing, and connect with small artisanal workshops in Milan. My home office, which James dismissively called my hobby room, had slowly transformed into a sanctuary of creativity and rebellion. "I suppose you're right," I said quietly, placing my napkin beside my half-eaten risotto. "I am amateur, for now." Something in my tone made him look up from his wine, his perfectly manicured eyebrows drawing together in confusion. For the first time in years, I held his gaze without flinching. The setting sun caught the silver threads in his dark hair, reminding me of how we'd aged together, how I'd spent my entire adult life orbiting his star. "Mom?" Emma's voice carried a note of concern. She knew. Of course she knew. She had caught me working late one night, had seen the designs, had kept my secret with a fierce pride that brought tears to my eyes. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I assured her, but my voice carried a new resonance, a determination that made James put down his glass. "Your father is absolutely right. I am an amateur. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to make a phone call that will change that." The tension at the table was palpable. James laughed, but it was hollow, uncertain. "What are you talking about, Clara?" I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the stone terrace. "I'm talking about the fact that I've been offered an apprenticeship with Alessandra Rossi in Milan." The name hung in the air like a thundercloud. Alessandra Rossi, James's former mentor, now his fiercest competitor, the woman who had seen my designs through a mutual contact and had been quietly encouraging me for months. "That's impossible," James sputtered, his composure cracking. "Alessandra wouldn't..." "Wouldn't what, James? Wouldn't see potential in someone you've dismissed? Wouldn't dare to train your wife?" The words felt foreign in my mouth. Strong, decisive, unstoppable. "She's been following my work for 6 months. The apprenticeship starts in 2 weeks." The children were looking at me with a mixture of shock and something else. Pride? Hope? James's face had gone pale, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "You can't be serious." "What about the children? What about my fall collection launch?" "The children will be fine," Emma interrupted, her voice steady. "Mom, Lucas, and I have talked about this. We want you to do it." My heart swelled with love and gratitude for my children, who had grown wise beyond their years, who had watched their mother slowly disappear and were now cheering her resurrection. "This is ridiculous," James declared, standing up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "You're having some sort of midlife crisis. We'll discuss this later when you're thinking clearly." But as he stormed off into the villa, I remained standing, watching the sun sink behind the cypress trees. For the first time in 15 years, I felt truly clear-headed. The path ahead would be difficult. I harbored no illusions about that. But as I looked at my children's faces, saw their quiet support and love, I knew that this moment, this decision, would define not just my future, but theirs as well. "Mom?" Lucas spoke for the first time, his voice cracking slightly. "Are you really going to do it?" I walked around the table and pulled both my children into a tight embrace. "Yes, my loves. It's time for me to do more than just try. It's time for me to succeed." As we held each other in the fading Tuscan light, I could feel the weight of years of self-doubt beginning to lift. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, this moment of clarity, of decision, of strength, this was enough. The next morning, I woke before dawn, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The villa was silent, except for the distant cooing of doves. James hadn't come to bed last night. I'd heard him pacing in his study until the early hours, making phone calls in harsh whispers. I knew he was trying to derail my opportunity before it began. I reached for my phone and saw 3 missed calls from Alessandra. My hands trembled as I dialed her number, stepping out onto the balcony to watch the sun rise over the Tuscan hills. "Clara." Alessandra's rich Italian accent welcomed me warmly. "I received some interesting calls last night." My stomach clenched. "Alessandra, I can explain." "No need, Cara," she interrupted, and I could hear the smile in her voice. James always was predictable in his insecurities. "Tell me, are you ready to begin your real journey in fashion?" The relief that flooded through me was so intense I had to sit down on one of the wrought iron chairs. "More than ready," I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. "Good, because I'm moving up your start date. I want you here tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" I echoed, my mind racing. "But the children." "Bring them," she said simply. "My villa has plenty of room, and Milan has excellent international schools. Unless," she paused delicately, "you're having second thoughts?" I thought about James's dismissive words, about 15 years of shrinking myself to fit into the space he'd allocated for me. "No second thoughts," I said firmly. "We'll be there." The next few hours were a whirlwind. I woke Emma and Lucas, explaining the situation. Their immediate enthusiasm both warmed my heart and broke it. Had they been waiting for this moment as long as I had? "What about Dad?" Lucas asked, shoving clothes haphazardly into his suitcase. "Your father will always be your father," I assured him, helping him fold a sweater properly. "This change is about me, not about your relationship with him." Emma was already packed, her organizational skills far exceeding mine. "Dad's going to try to stop us," she said matter-of-factly, helping Lucas with his packing. She was right. James appeared in the doorway of Lucas's room, his usually impeccable appearance showing signs of strain. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. I straightened up, meeting his gaze. "Taking control of my life. By destroying our family? By turning our children against me?" His voice rose with each question. "I've already called my lawyer. You can't take them out of the country without my permission." "Actually," I said calmly, "I can. The children's passports are in order, and as their mother, I have equal rights to travel with them. But James, I'm not taking them from you. I'm showing them that it's never too late to stand up for yourself." "Stand up for yourself?" he scoffed. "You have everything. I gave you a perfect life. You gave me a cage," I corrected him quietly. "A beautiful one, but a cage nonetheless. And now I'm choosing to fly." The children had stopped packing, watching this exchange with wide eyes. James looked at them, his expression softening. "Kids, you don't have to go. You can stay here with me." Emma stepped forward, her chin raised in a gesture so like her father's it almost made me smile. "We want to go with Mom. We want to see her succeed." James reeled back as if she'd slapped him. "Succeed? She's throwing away everything we've built, everything I've given her." "No," Lucas spoke up, his voice shaking but determined. "She's building something of her own." I watched my children standing their ground, defending my dreams, and felt a fierce pride unlike anything I'd experienced before. They weren't just supporting my decision, they were learning from it. "This is temporary insanity," James declared, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "When this falls apart, and it will fall apart, Clara, don't expect me to be waiting with open arms." "I don't expect anything from you anymore," I replied. and was surprised to find I meant it. That's the whole point. He stormed out, and we heard his car roaring to life minutes later, gravel spraying as he drove away. The silence he left behind felt like a new beginning. Within hours, we were on our way to Milan. The children were unusually quiet during the drive, each lost in their own thoughts. I kept glancing at them in the rearview mirror, wondering if I was being selfish, if I was asking too much of them. "Stop worrying, Mom," Emma said, catching my eye in the mirror. "We're going to be okay. More than okay," Lucas added, looking up from his phone. "Did you know Milan has one of the best soccer academies in Europe?" I laughed, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "Is that what you've been researching?" He nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Well, if you're going to chase your dreams, maybe I should chase mine too." The afternoon sun painted the highway ahead in gold, much like it had during that fateful dinner. But this time, instead of feeling trapped by the beauty around us, I felt lifted by it. We were driving toward uncertainty, yes, but also toward possibility. My phone buzzed with a text from Alessandra. "Your workspace is ready. Time to show the world what you can do." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Tomorrow, I would walk into Alessandra Rossi's atelier, not as James Morrison's wife, but as Clara Bennett, designer in training. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "Mom?" Emma's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "What's your first design going to be?" I smiled, thinking of the sketches hidden in my portfolio, the ones I'd been too afraid to show anyone except Alessandra. "Something that tells a story of transformation," I replied. "Something that shows how breaking free can be the most beautiful design of all." As Milan grew closer on the horizon, I felt a surge of certainty. This wasn't just about proving James wrong. It was about proving myself right. And somehow I knew that this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. Alessandra's atelier was nothing like I'd imagined. While James's studio in London was all sleek minimalism and cold efficiency, this space breathed with creative chaos and warm energy. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating workbenches where seamstresses bent over intricate beadwork, their practiced hands moving with hypnotic precision. "Your space," Alessandra announced, leading me to a corner workstation. A dress form stood waiting, its blank canvas both inviting and intimidating. "Show me what you can do with silk charmeuse." She dropped a bolt of midnight blue fabric on my table and walked away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. No further instructions, no guidance, just a test of pure creativity and skill. I stood there, frozen, as the reality of my situation crashed over me. The other designers, all younger, all formally trained, glanced at me with barely concealed curiosity. I could almost hear their thoughts. "So, this is James Morrison's wife. Let's see what she can actually do." My hands trembled as I unrolled the fabric. Its liquid shimmer reminded me of the Tuscan night sky we'd left behind. Emma and Lucas were at their new school for their first day, probably feeling just as out of place as I did. We'd spent our first night in Alessandra's villa, in a guest suite bigger than our London apartment, all of us too wired to sleep. "The drape is unforgiving," a voice said beside me. I turned to find a young woman with close-cropped silver hair and tattoo-covered arms. "It'll show every mistake." "I know," I replied, running my fingers over the silk. "That's why she chose it." The woman smiled, extending her hand. "I'm Marco's apprentice. He told me to watch out for you." "Marco?" The name triggered a memory. "Marco Visconti? James's old collaborator?" She nodded. "The one your husband tried to blackball 5 years ago when Marco started his own line. I'm Sophia, by the way." My cheeks burned with shame. I remembered that controversy. James had been furious about Marco's betrayal, but I'd never known the full story. "I'm sorry about that. James can be an egotistical tyrant," Sophia supplied helpfully. "Don't apologize for him. We're all more interested in what you can do." She returned to her own workstation, leaving me with the silk in my thoughts. I closed my eyes, remembering all those late nights of study, all the YouTube tutorials and online courses. "Trust your instincts," I whispered to myself, and began to work. Hours melted away as I lost myself in the creation process. The silk transformed under my hands, taking shape in a way I'd only dreamed about. I was so absorbed that I didn't notice Alessandra's return until her shadow fell across my work. "Interesting choice," she said, examining my half-finished design. Not what I expected. I looked at my creation, a seemingly simple dress that revealed its complexity in the details, asymmetrical draping that created subtle patterns in the light, architectural pleating that defied the fabric's natural flow. It was nothing like James's aesthetic of obvious luxury. This was quieter, more subversive. "It's not finished," I started to explain, but Alessandra held up a hand. "Never apologize for work in progress," she said firmly. "That's your husband's influence speaking. Tell me instead what you're trying to say with this design." I straightened up, finding courage in her direct gaze. "It's about transformation," I said. "How something can appear simple at first glance but reveal its complexity when you look closer. How change can be both subtle and dramatic at the same time." A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Good. Now make it better. You have until tomorrow morning." As she walked away, I heard whispers from the other workstations. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "How's your first day going? Lucas made the soccer team's tryout list." I smiled, typing back a quick congratulation, then returned to my work with renewed energy. The afternoon light shifted to evening, but I barely noticed. Other apprentices began packing up, but I stayed, determined to prove myself. "You should eat something," Sophia said, placing a cappuccino and a sandwich beside me. "Creative genius requires fuel." I realized I hadn't eaten since morning. "Thank you," I said, gratefully accepting the food. "Why are you being so nice to me?" She shrugged, perching on the edge of my workbench. "Because 5 years ago, Marco took a chance on a tattooed bartender who made clothes in her spare time. Sometimes people just need someone to believe in them." As I ate, she examined my work. "It's good," she said finally. "Different. You're not trying to copy anyone's style." "I spent years copying James," I admitted. "Everything I designed was an attempt to win his approval. This is the first time I'm just creating what I see in my head." "Keep doing that," she advised. "The fashion world doesn't need another James Morrison. It needs new voices." I worked late into the night, losing track of time until my phone buzzed again. A text from Lucas. "Mom, are you coming home for dinner? Emma's attempting to cook pasta." Guilt shot through me. In my determination to prove myself, I was neglecting my children on their first day in a new country. I quickly packed up my supplies, promising myself I'd return early the next morning. When I got back to the villa, I found Emma and Lucas in the kitchen, surrounded by what looked like a pasta explosion. They'd attempted to make carbonara with questionable results. "Sorry, Mom," Emma said, looking embarrassed. "We wanted to surprise you." I pulled them both into a hug, not caring about the flour that covered their clothes. "It's perfect," I assured them. "Everything is perfect." As we sat eating slightly overcooked pasta, sharing stories about our first day, Lucas's soccer tryouts, Emma's new art class, my adventures with silk, I felt a surge of certainty. We were all starting over, all learning to spread our wings. "By the way," Lucas said, showing me his phone, "Dad's been posting on Instagram. He's telling everyone you had a breakdown and kidnapped us to Italy." I should have been angry, but instead, I found myself laughing. "Let him talk," I said. "Actions speak louder than social media posts." "Mom," Emma said seriously, "your dress, the one you're making. Can I see it tomorrow, before you finish it?" "Of course," I replied, touched by her interest. "Maybe you can help me with some of the details." As I lay in bed that night, my mind raced with adjustments and improvements I wanted to make to the dress. But more than that, I thought about Sophia's words about new voices and Marco's story of starting over. Perhaps that's what this whole journey was about. Not just proving myself, but finding my own voice, my own style, my own way of seeing the world. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, I was exactly where I needed to be. The silk charmeuse waited in the atelier, ready to be transformed, just like me. 3 weeks into my apprenticeship, I discovered what it truly meant to be in the fashion industry's crosshairs. The morning started normally enough. I arrived early at the atelier, eager to continue work on my latest project. But something was off. The usual morning chatter died as I walked in, and several of my fellow designers quickly averted their eyes. Sophia met me at my workstation, her expression grim. "Have you seen Vogue Italia's website this morning?" I shook my head, dread pooling in my stomach. She pulled up the article on her tablet. James Morrison speaks out. The truth behind fashion's latest scandal. The accompanying photo was from our last anniversary party. Me in one of James's designs, smiling up at him with what I now recognized as desperate approval-seeking. "Clara Bennett's so-called design career is built on theft," I read aloud, my voice shaking. Sources close to the designer reveal that she had been secretly copying her husband's unreleased designs, planning to pass them off as her own under Alessandra Rossi's mentorship. The article went on to quote anonymous industry insiders, who questioned my integrity and suggested that my entire portfolio was plagiarized. James hadn't commented directly, but his PR team had released a statement expressing his deep disappointment and sense of betrayal. "It's ridiculous," Sophia said fiercely. "Anyone who's seen your work knows your style is nothing like his." But the damage was already spreading. My phone was flooded with notifications, fashion blogs picking up the story, old friends from London sending concerned messages, and worst of all, a text from Emma. "Mom, everyone at school is talking about it. Lucas got into a fight defending you." My hands trembled as I called the school. Lucas had a black eye but was otherwise okay. The other boy had been spouting things his parents had read online about me being a fraud and a homewrecker. The school was being understanding, but they strongly suggested I come in for a meeting. "Go," Sophia said, squeezing my shoulder. "I'll cover for you with Alessandra." But as I gathered my things, Alessandra's voice rang out across the atelier. "Clara, my office, now." Her office was a reflection of her design philosophy, organized chaos that somehow worked perfectly. She was standing at the window, wearing one of her own designs, an architectural marvel in crimson that made her look like a Renaissance painting come to life. "Sit," she commanded, not turning around. "Tell me, did you steal James's designs?" "No," I said firmly, finding strength in the simple truth. "Every design in my portfolio is mine. James never even looked at them. He was too busy dismissing my work as a hobby." She turned then, her dark eyes intense. "I know. I knew the moment I saw your first sketches. James designs for the market. You design from the soul." She sat down behind her desk, pulling out a thick folder. "But perception is reality in this industry. And right now, the perception is that you're a fraud." My heart sank. "Are you asking me to leave?" "Leave?" She looked genuinely surprised. "My dear, I'm asking you to fight back. Tomorrow night is the Milan Fashion Week kickoff gala. Every major designer, critic, and journalist will be there, including your husband." She smiled, and there was something almost predatory in it. "You're coming with me, and you're wearing your own design." "But I'm just an apprentice," I protested. "I'm not ready for that kind of exposure." "The blue silk dress," she said, ignoring my objection. "The one you've been working on after hours when you think no one's watching. Finish it. That's what you're wearing." I stared at her, my mind racing. The dress she mentioned was my most personal design yet, a piece that literally transformed as the wearer moved, revealing layers of complexity that weren't visible at first glance. I'd been working on it in secret, afraid it was too experimental, too different from what was expected. "It's not finished," I said weakly. "Then finish it. Show them who you really are." She stood up, signaling the end of our meeting. "Oh, and Clara, bring your children to the gala." It's time they saw their mother shine. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I worked frantically on the dress, barely stopping to eat. Sophia brought me coffee and kept curious onlookers away. By evening, my fingers were pricked and bleeding, but the dress was taking shape exactly as I'd envisioned it. When I finally got home, I found Emma and Lucas waiting up for me. Lucas's eye was swollen, and guilt crashed over me again. "I'm so sorry," I began, but Lucas cut me off. "Don't be," he said firmly. "Dad's the one who should be sorry. He's trying to hurt you because he can't control you anymore." Emma nodded. pulling up something on her laptop. And look at this. People are starting to question his story. Some of his former assistants are speaking out about how he treats people. It's not just about you anymore, Mom. It's about everyone he's ever bullied. I sat down heavily, overwhelmed by their support and the weight of what was happening. Alessandra wants us all to go to the Fashion Week Gala tomorrow night, I said. I'll be wearing my own design. Your father will be there. Good, Emma said, her eyes blazing. Let him see what he tried to destroy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about James's accusations, about the years I spent diminishing myself to avoid overshadowing him. The dress hanging in my workshop represented everything I'd been afraid to be. Bold, innovative, unapologetically myself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my old sketchbook, the one I thought I'd lost in the move. Looking for this? James's message followed. It would be a shame if the original versions of your designs went public. I stared at the phone, feeling an odd sense of calm. He didn't understand. Those old sketches, the ones he was threatening to expose, would only prove how far I'd come, how much I'd grown beyond his influence. I typed back a single sentence. See you at the gala. Tomorrow, I would either rise from the ashes of James's accusations or watch my dreams go up in flames. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of failure. I was more afraid of not trying at all. The dress moved like liquid starlight as I made final adjustments in Alessandra's private dressing room. The midnight blue silk transformed with every step, revealing hidden layers of silver that seemed to float beneath the surface. My hands were steady now, sure of every stitch and seam. You've outdone yourself, Sophia said, helping me with the final touches. She'd insisted on doing my makeup, creating a look that was both elegant and fierce. James won't know what hit him. It's not about James anymore, I replied, surprising myself with how true those words felt. It's about who I am without him. Emma and Lucas waited in the anteroom, both dressed for the occasion. Emma wore a vintage Alessandra Rossi piece, a gift from the designer herself, while Lucas looked handsome and uncomfortable in his new suit. When I stepped out, their eyes widened. Mom? Emma breathed. You look like yourself. Finally. I knew exactly what she meant. For years, I'd dressed to compliment James, to be the perfect backdrop to his success. Tonight, I was the story, not the footnote. Alessandra appeared, resplendent in black and gold. Ready to make history? She asked, her eyes twinkling with mischief. The gala was being held in the courtyard of a 16th-century palazzo, its Renaissance architecture providing a dramatic backdrop for Milan's fashion elite. As we arrived, I could feel the ripple of whispers spreading through the crowd. James was already there, holding court near the champagne fountain, surrounded by his usual entourage. Chin up, Alessandra murmured. You're not the woman he married anymore. We made our entrance, and the reaction was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as people turned to stare. My dress caught the light from the courtyard's chandeliers, creating an ethereal effect that made it seem as though I was walking through stardust. I saw the exact moment James spotted me. His glass of champagne froze halfway to his lips, his carefully cultivated composure slipping for just a second. But it was his eyes that told the real story. The flash of recognition that what he was seeing was entirely original, entirely mine. Clara Bennett, a voice called out. It was Diana Chen, editor-in-chief of Fashion Forward and one of the industry's most respected critics. I've been hoping to meet you. That dress is extraordinary. Before I could respond, James materialized beside us. Diana, darling, he said smoothly. I see you've met my wife, former wife soon enough. Mr. Morrison, Diana nodded coolly. I was just admiring Clara's design. The construction is remarkable. Nothing like anything I've seen before. Yes, well, James's smile was razor sharp. Clara has always been good at reinterpreting existing ideas. Actually, I cut in, finding my voice, I'd love to show you how the design transforms, Diana. The inspiration came from studying how light behaves underwater, how it bends and refracts to create new patterns. As I demonstrated the dress's unique properties, a small crowd gathered. I could see James's face darkening as more and more people were drawn into my technical explanation of the design's architecture. Fascinating, Diana said, genuinely intrigued. And this is your first major piece? It's her only piece, James interrupted. Everything else in her portfolio was what, James? The words came from behind us. Marco Visconti stepped forward, his silver hair gleaming in the chandelier light. Stolen from you? Like you claimed I stole from you when I started my own line. The crowd grew quieter, sensing drama. James's face flushed. Marco, this is hardly the time. I've seen Clara's complete portfolio, Marco continued, his voice carrying across the courtyard. Every sketch, every design note, they tell the story of a designer finding her voice, a voice that's distinctly her own. Unlike some people I know who built their early collections by copying Parisian designs and calling them inspired by, the silence that followed was deafening. James's past had always been carefully curated, his rise to fame presented as a story of pure talent and hard work. But Marco had been there at the beginning, and everyone knew it. Mom? Lucas's voice cut through the tension. He and Emma had moved to stand beside me. Show them the butterfly effect. I smiled, understanding what he meant. In the right light, when I moved in a specific way, the dress created an illusion of wings unfurling. It was a detail I'd added thinking of my own emergence from my chrysalis of self-doubt. As I demonstrated this feature, gasps of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Diana was recording it on her phone, her eyes alight with professional interest. You see, Alessandra spoke up, her voice carrying authority that commanded attention. True design comes from authenticity. Clara's work speaks to transformation because she has lived it. Each piece in her portfolio shows her evolution, from tentative first sketches to this masterpiece before you. James looked around, realizing he was losing control of the narrative. This is absurd, he snapped. She's been my wife for 15 years. Everything she knows about fashion, she learned from me. No, James, I said quietly but firmly. Everything I know about fashion, I learned despite you. You taught me about fear, about doubting myself, about making myself smaller to make you feel bigger. But this? I gestured to my dress. This I learned on my own, in stolen moments and late nights when you were too busy basking in your own glory to notice me growing beyond your shadow. Emma slipped her hand into mine, while Lucas stood tall on my other side. The three of us, united, facing down the man who had tried to clip our wings. If anyone's interested in seeing real innovation, Diana announced, I'd love to feature Clara's complete portfolio in next month's issue. A fresh voice is exactly what the industry needs right now. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations and connections. Industry veterans who had barely noticed me at James's shows were now eager to discuss my techniques and vision. Young designers approached me with questions about breaking free from creative constraints. Through it all, my children stayed close, beaming with pride. As the night drew to a close, I caught sight of James leaving early, alone, his shoulders uncharacteristically slumped. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old urge to run after him, to smooth things over. But then I felt Emma squeeze my hand, and I remembered who I was now. Ready to go home? Sophia asked, appearing with our coats. Almost, I replied, taking one last look around the courtyard. The stars were visible now, twinkling above the Renaissance architecture, and my dress still caught and transformed every bit of light it touched. I was ready for whatever came next, the challenges, the criticism, the hard work of building something truly my own, because finally, gloriously, I was no longer afraid to shine. The morning after the gala, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. Diana Chen's article had already gone live. Fashion's New Voice, The Emergence of Clara Bennett. And it had gone viral. My Instagram followers had jumped from a modest 500 to over 50,000 overnight. My inbox was flooded with interview requests, collaboration offers, and messages from other women sharing their stories of breaking free from controlling relationships. Mom! Emma burst into my room, still in her pajamas, clutching her tablet. You're trending on Twitter, and look at what people are saying about your dress. The coverage was overwhelming. Fashion blogs were analyzing every detail of my design, praising its innovation and technical complexity. But what touched me most were the comments from women who saw themselves in my story. "Your children must be so proud," one comment read. "You showed them that it's never too late to stand up for yourself." Lucas appeared in the doorway, his black eye now a fascinating shade of yellow-green. "There's a crowd of photographers outside the villa," he reported, trying to sound casual but unable to hide his excitement. "Alessandra's security is keeping them at bay." I reached for my phone again, seeing missed calls from James's lawyer, my own lawyer, recommended by Alessandra, and surprisingly, James himself. I wasn't ready to deal with any of that yet. Instead, I called Sophia. "Help," I said when she answered. "I have no idea how to handle all of this." She laughed. "Get dressed and come to the atelier. Alessandra's called an emergency meeting." The atelier was buzzing with energy when I arrived. Every workstation was occupied, with designers and seamstresses working frantically on what appeared to be new pieces. Alessandra stood in the center of it all, directing traffic like a conductor leading an orchestra. "Ah, Clara," she said when she saw me. "Good. We have exactly 6 weeks to create your debut collection for Milan Fashion Week." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What? But I'm just an apprentice. I can't possibly—" "You stopped being just an apprentice the moment you showed the world what you can do," she interrupted. "Diana's article has created demand. We either meet that demand or watch your momentum fade. Your choice." "I don't even have enough designs for a full collection," I protested. "Yes, you do." Sophia appeared with a familiar leather portfolio, my secret sketchbook, the one I'd been filling with designs I never thought I'd share. "You just need to believe in them like we do." As I flipped through the pages, I saw my dreams laid out in ink and watercolor. Designs that transformed traditional silhouettes, pieces that played with light and shadow, clothes that told stories of metamorphosis and renewal. "These would take months to produce," I said weakly. "Good thing you have an entire atelier ready to help," Alessandra replied. "Consider it your graduation present." The next few hours were a whirlwind of planning and organization. Sophia helped me sort through my designs, selecting pieces that could be grouped into a cohesive collection. Other designers offered their assistance with pattern making and sourcing materials. Even the seamstresses who had initially been skeptical of me came forward with suggestions for bringing my more ambitious designs to life. By late afternoon, my workstation had transformed into a command center of sorts. Fabric swatches, technical drawings, and production schedules covered every surface. Emma had come by after school and was helping to organize everything into a digital catalog, while Lucas worked on his homework in a corner, occasionally offering surprisingly insightful comments about color choices. "Clara," Alessandra called out. A moment in my office. She was standing by her window again, but this time her posture was different. Less commanding, more contemplative. "James called me this morning," she said without preamble. "He's withdrawing his accusations of design theft." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Why?" "Because Marco threatened to tell the real story of how James built his empire. It seems your husband's early career holds quite a few secrets." She turned to face me. "He also asked about the children." My heart clenched. "What did he say?" "He wants to see them. On their terms, not his." She studied my face carefully. "You know, James wasn't always the man he became. Success changed him, or perhaps it just amplified what was already there. The question is, how will you handle success?" It was something I'd been wondering myself. The attention, the praise, the sudden validation of everything I'd been working toward. It was intoxicating. But I'd seen what that intoxication had done to James. "I have something he didn't," I said finally. "Oh? People who will tell me the truth. People who love me for who I am, not what I can do for them." I thought of my children's unwavering support, Sophia's friendship, Marco's integrity, and Alessandra's tough but fair mentorship. And I have the memory of what it feels like to be silenced. I never want to make anyone else feel that way. She nodded, satisfied. "Good answer. Now, about your collection. I've been thinking about the opener." As we discussed the technical details of my Fashion Week debut, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would be challenging, I had no illusions about that. Creating a collection in 6 weeks while managing my newfound public profile and helping my children navigate their changing relationship with their father would push me to my limits. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't facing these challenges alone. I wasn't James Morrison's wife anymore. I was Clara Bennett, designer, mother, and woman coming into her own power. My phone buzzed with another message from James. This time I read it. "I'm sorry for everything. The children can tell me about your show when they're ready to talk." I showed the message to Emma and Lucas when I got home that night. "It's your choice," I told them. "Whatever relationship you want to have with your father, I'll support you." Emma considered this carefully. "Maybe we can meet him for lunch next week, after we help you finish the sketches for your collection." Lucas nodded. "Yeah, but he has to come to Milan. We're not leaving Mom during her big moment." I hugged them both, marveling at their wisdom and loyalty. As we sat down to dinner, properly cooked this time, thanks to cooking lessons from Alessandra's chef, I looked around at our new life. The apartment was smaller than our London home, and our future was less certain, but we were happy. Really, genuinely happy. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "can I intern at the atelier this summer? I think I might want to be a designer too." I smiled, remembering my own dreams at her age, dreams I'd nearly forgotten until now. "Of course, sweetheart. You can be anything you want to be." And this time, I knew she would believe it, because she had seen it with her own eyes. 4 weeks before Milan Fashion Week, I found myself staring at a half-finished evening gown at 3 in the morning, my eyes burning from exhaustion. The atelier was silent except for the distant hum of the air conditioning and the whisper of silk under my hands. My collection was taking shape, but the pressure was mounting with each passing day. "I thought I'd find you here," a familiar voice said. I turned to see Emma in her pajamas, holding 2 cups of coffee from the all-night cafe around the corner. "Sweetheart, you should be in bed," I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "So should you," she countered, pulling up a chair. "But I heard you leave an hour ago. The nightmares again?" I nodded. Since the announcement of my Fashion Week debut, I'd been having the same dream. Standing on an empty runway in one of James's old shows, my designs dissolving into smoke as the audience laughed. The pressure of creating an entire collection, of proving myself worthy of all this attention, was seeping into my subconscious. "Dad asked about the collection during lunch yesterday," Emma said carefully. She and Lucas had been meeting James weekly at a cafe near their school. The meetings were still awkward, but they were trying. All of them were trying. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing specific, just that you're working hard." She touched the fabric of the dress I was working on. "He seems different, quieter." He actually listened when Lucas talked about his soccer matches instead of just lecturing about the importance of having a real career plan. The James she described was hard to reconcile with the man I'd known. But then again, maybe losing control of his perfectly curated life had forced him to reflect on his behavior. "Mom," Emma hesitated. "He asked if he could come to your show." My hands stilled on the silk. "What did you say?" "I told him I'd ask you. Lucas thinks it's a bad idea, but—" She trailed off. But I think maybe it would be good to show him, and yourself, that you're not afraid of him anymore." Sometimes my daughter's insight took my breath away. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Diana Chen. "Rumor has it, Vogue International is sending Anna herself to your debut. No pressure." I put down the phone with shaking hands. Emma read the message over my shoulder and whistled. "Wow, Mom, that's huge." "That's terrifying," I corrected her, but I was smiling. A month ago, this news would have paralyzed me with fear. Now, it felt like a challenge I was ready to face. The next morning at the atelier was chaos as usual. Sophia was coordinating with fabric suppliers who were threatening to delay our orders. 2 seamstresses were arguing over the construction of a particularly complex jacket. And Alessandra was on the phone speaking rapid-fire Italian to someone about lighting designs. "Clara," Marco called from his workstation. "Come look at this." He had been helping me refine the technical aspects of my more ambitious pieces. On his table lay the prototype of what we'd been calling the Phoenix dress. a seemingly simple sheath that transformed through a series of ingenious hidden panels to reveal layers of color and texture. "The mechanism is still catching here," he demonstrated, "but I think I've figured out how to fix it." As we worked together to solve the technical challenge, I marveled at how far I'd come from the woman who used to hide her sketches. Marco must have been thinking something similar because he said, "You know, James came to see me yesterday." My hands froze on the fabric. "Oh?" "He wanted to apologize. For everything. Not just the plagiarism accusations, but for how he treated me when I started my own line." Marco's eyes were distant. He seemed humbled. "He asked about you, about how you were handling the pressure of your first collection." "What did you tell him?" "I told him you were doing what he never could, creating something truly original while lifting up the people around you instead of tearing them down." I blinked back unexpected tears. "Thank you, Marco." "Don't thank me yet," he grinned. "Wait until you see the bill for all these technical consultations." The days began to blur together. I worked late into the night, caught a few hours of sleep, then returned to the atelier before dawn. The collection was consuming my life, but in the best possible way. Each piece felt like a chapter in my story, the story of a woman rediscovering herself. Lucas started bringing his homework to the atelier after soccer practice, claiming the energy of the place helped him concentrate. In reality, I knew he was keeping an eye on me, making sure I remembered to eat and take breaks. He'd developed a surprising friendship with one of the pattern makers, an elderly man who had once played professional soccer in his youth. Emma had thrown herself into her internship role, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. She had an eye for detail that impressed even Alessandra, who had started giving her small design tasks of her own. One evening, about 3 weeks before the show, Emma approached my workstation with an unusual request. "Mom, I have an idea for one of the pieces, but it's kind of controversial." She showed me her sketch, a sophisticated take on the dress I'd worn the night James had dismissed my dreams in Tuscany, but reconstructed in a way that turned its symbols of submission into statements of power. "It's brilliant," I said, studying the technical details. "But are you sure you want to reference that night?" "I think it's important," she said firmly. "It's part of the story, and—" She hesitated. "I thought maybe I could walk it in the show, if you want." I stared at my daughter, seeing not just the creative young woman she was becoming, but also the strength she'd shown throughout our journey. "You'd do that?" "We all would," came Lucas's voice. He joined us at the workstation. "I mean, I'm not wearing a dress, but I want to be part of it too. Maybe I could help backstage?" That night, as I lay in bed reviewing the day's progress, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and typed a message to James. "The children told me you want to come to the show. You're welcome to attend. This is not about our past. It's about their future and mine." His reply came quickly. "Thank you. Break a leg. You've earned this." Simple words, but they represented a seismic shift in our dynamic. I was no longer seeking his approval or fearing his judgment. I was extending an olive branch from a position of strength, not weakness. The next morning, I arrived at the atelier energized despite my lack of sleep. The phoenix dress was waiting on my form, its mechanisms now working perfectly thanks to Marco's expertise. Sophia was already there, organizing the day's tasks. Emma's sketch for the reconstructed dress was pinned to my inspiration board. "Ready for the final push?" Sophia asked, handing me my morning coffee. I looked around at the collection taking shape, each piece telling part of my story, each stitch representing a step in my journey from James Morrison's shadow to Clara Bennett's light. "Ready," I replied, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. The week before Milan Fashion Week, everything that could go wrong did. 3 of our models pulled out at the last minute due to scheduling conflicts. A pipe burst in the atelier, threatening thousands of euros worth of fabric. The music composer for the show had a family emergency and had to be replaced. Through it all, I maintained a calm I didn't know I possessed, even as my insides churned with anxiety. "It's always like this," Sophia assured me as we frantically refitted designs on new models. If everything went smoothly, it wouldn't be Fashion Week. But then came the blow I wasn't prepared for. 2 days before the show, Emma caught the flu. I can still walk, she insisted from her bed, her face flushed with fever. Mom, I promised. The dress, my dress, it's important. I sat on the edge of her bed, stroking her burning forehead. The reconstructed dress she'd designed had become a centerpiece of the collection, a symbol of our shared journey. We'd spent weeks perfecting it together, and she'd been practicing her walk every evening. Your health is more important, I said firmly, though my heart ached. We'll find another model. No, she said, trying to sit up and immediately falling back against her pillows. It has to be me. It's our story. Lucas appeared in the doorway, his face uncharacteristically serious. What if? He hesitated, then squared his shoulders. What if I could find someone who could tell the story just as well? 3 hours later, I stood in the atelier, staring in disbelief at the young woman before me. Lucas had called his girlfriend Maria, whose mother had been a model in the 90s before becoming a successful businesswoman. Sofia Montenegro had retired from modeling years ago to run her import-export company. But when she heard our story, my ex-husband was like James, Sofia said as we pinned the dress. He told me I was too old for the runway, that I should be grateful he let me play at being a businesswoman. Now my company out-earns his 3-to-1. She wore the dress like armor, understanding exactly what it represented. When she walked, the reconstructed elements shifted and transformed, revealing their hidden strength. Emma, watching the fitting via video call, had tears in her eyes. It's perfect, she whispered. She understands. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of final adjustments and rehearsals. Alessandra had pulled strings to get us the prime slot of Fashion Week, 8 p.m. on the second day, when all the major editors and buyers would be present. The pressure was immense, but it felt different now. It felt like anticipation rather than fear. The night before the show, I couldn't sleep. I found myself walking through the silent atelier, touching each piece of the collection. Each garment told part of my story, from the opening piece that represented my years of constraint to the phoenix dress that embodied my transformation. And of course, Emma's dress, now made even more powerful by Sofia's understanding of its meaning. Couldn't sleep either? I turned to find Lucas in the doorway. He'd been staying late every night, helping the production team with everything from lighting cues to music timing. Just doing one final check, I said, but we both knew it was more than that. He joined me, looking at the collection with a thoughtfulness that reminded me he wasn't my little boy anymore. You know what I realized? He said finally. This isn't just your story anymore. It's everyone's story who's ever been told they're not good enough. I hugged him, marveling at his insight. When did you get so wise? Probably around the time I watched my mom become a superhero. He grinned. We were interrupted by a commotion at the door. It was Emma, wrapped in blankets and supported by Sofia. Your daughter, Sofia said with exasperated fondness, insisted on coming to help with final preparations. I tried to stop her, but apparently stubbornness runs in the family. Emma's fever had broken, but she was still weak. Yet her eyes were bright as she surveyed the collection. I had to come, she said. I had to see it all together. One last time before tomorrow. We ended up spending the night in the atelier, Emma resting on the couch while Lucas and I made tiny adjustments and triple-checked every detail. Sofia brought us coffee and croissants at dawn, and soon the space began filling with the buzz of final preparations. The models arrived for their last fittings. Sofia, wearing Emma's dress, moved with a grace that brought tears to my eyes. The production team ran through lighting and music cues one final time. Makeup artists and hairstylists practiced their looks. In the midst of the chaos, my phone buzzed with a text from James. Break a leg. The children's strength comes from you, not me. I see that now. I showed the message to Emma and Lucas. Emma managed a small smile. He's learning, she said softly. Better late than never, Lucas added, but his voice held less bitterness than before. As the sun rose over Milan, painting the atelier in shades of gold and promise, I looked at my collection, really looked at it. Each piece was exactly as I'd envisioned, each stitch a testament to not just my journey, but to everyone who had helped me along the way. Alessandra appeared, immaculate as always. The car will be here in an hour to take everything to the venue, she announced. Clara, are you ready? I looked at my children. Emma still wrapped in blankets but beaming with pride. Lucas standing tall and protective beside her. I thought of Sophia wearing the dress that represented our breaking free, of Sophia's unwavering support, of Marco's generous mentorship, and of James's gradual understanding. Yes, I said, and this time my voice didn't shake at all. I'm ready. The backstage area of Milan Fashion Week was organized chaos. Models were being transformed by teams of makeup artists and hairstylists. Dressers rushed back and forth with garments, and the air thrummed with nervous energy. I moved through it all in a state of focused calm, making final adjustments and checking every detail. 5 minutes until first looks, the stage manager called out. I caught a glimpse of myself in one of the makeup mirrors. Gone was the uncertain woman who had once hidden her sketches. In her place stood someone I was finally getting to know. A designer, a mother, a woman who had found her strength. Mom! Emma's voice cut through the chaos. She was still pale but standing on her own, clipboard in hand as she helped coordinate the show order. They're ready for you for the pre-show interview. Diana Chen was waiting in the press area, her camera crew already set up. Clara? She smiled warmly. Ready to tell the world your story? As the interview began, I spoke from my heart about transformation, about finding your voice, about the strength that comes from being truly seen. Each piece in this collection, I explained, represents a step in a journey that many women take, from silence to speech, from shadow to light. And what about the rumors that James Morrison is in attendance? Diana asked carefully. Yes, he is, I confirmed. Not as my husband or critic, but as the father of our children who have been instrumental in bringing this collection to life. A commotion near the entrance caught my attention. Through the crowd, I saw James arriving with an elegant older woman I recognized as his mother, Margaret. She had always been kind to me, though James had gradually distanced her from our lives as his success grew. Emma and Lucas went to greet their grandmother, who hugged them tightly. James stood slightly apart, looking both imposing and somehow diminished in his expertly tailored suit. Our eyes met across the space, and he gave me a small, almost uncertain nod. Places, everyone! The stage manager's voice snapped me back to the present. Show starts in 2 minutes. The next moments were a blur of final touches and last-minute adjustments. I found myself in the wings, watching as the house lights dimmed and the first strains of music began. A haunting melody that built slowly in intensity. The first model emerged onto the runway, wearing a design that spoke of constraint, transformed into strength. The audience's reaction was immediate, a collective intake of breath as they witnessed how the garment changed with every movement, telling its story without words. Each piece that followed built upon the last, creating a narrative of emergence and self-discovery. The Phoenix dress, worn by a statuesque Nigerian model named Adana, drew audible gasps as its hidden panels revealed themselves in a cascade of color and light. Then came Sophia in Emma's dress. She walked with deliberate grace, each step highlighting how the reconstructed elements of the original design now spoke of power, rather than submission. From my position in the wings, I could see James's face as he recognized the inspiration behind the piece. He closed his eyes briefly, his mother's hand finding his in what looked like both comfort and admonishment. The finale brought all the models back to the runway, each garment catching the light differently, creating a symphony of transformation. As the music reached its crescendo, I felt a hand slip into mine. Emma, with Lucas right behind her. Go, Emma whispered. It's your moment. Walking onto that runway was like walking into a new life. The applause was thunderous, but what moved me most were the faces I saw. Sophia beaming with pride, Marco nodding in approval, Alessandra looking satisfied, my children glowing with joy. And yes, James was there too, standing and applauding with what appeared to be genuine admiration. Our eyes met briefly, and in that moment I saw something I'd never seen before. Respect. Not as his wife or his shadow, but as an artist in my own right. The after-show reception was a whirlwind of congratulations and business cards. Buyers from major department stores wanted to discuss orders. Magazine editors requested exclusive interviews. A famous actress asked about commissioning a custom piece. "Clara," a quiet voice said behind me. I turned to find Margaret Morrison, James's mother. "I always knew you had this in you. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner." Before I could respond, she was replaced by Diana Chen. "Spectacular debut," she declared. "The industry hasn't seen anything this innovative since Alessandra's first collection." "High praise indeed," Alessandra joined us, champagne in hand. "But well-deserved. Clara has done something rare. She's found a way to make clothes that don't just look beautiful, but feel true." Later that night, after the crowds had dispersed and the cleanup crews had taken over, I found myself back in the empty venue with my children. Emma was tired but happy, her fever finally gone. Lucas was still buzzing with energy from helping run the show. "What happens now?" Lucas asked, sitting on the edge of the runway. "Now?" I smiled. "Now we build something real, something ours." Speaking of which, Emma pulled out her sketch pad. "I have some ideas for the next collection." I laughed, pulling them both close. "First, we rest. Then we create. Together." As we walked out into the Milan night, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. It hadn't been easy, and the road ahead would have its own challenges. Success would bring new pressures, new responsibilities, new tests of character. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had found my voice, my strength, my true design. More importantly, I had shown my children that it's never too late to rewrite your story, to transform pain into beauty, to emerge from the shadows and shine. My phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Coming to the atelier tomorrow? We have orders to fill." I smiled, typing back a quick response. "Wouldn't miss it. The real work begins now." And it did. But this time, I was ready. Ready to create, to grow, to lead. Ready to be exactly who I was meant to be all along. Not James Morrison's wife, but Clara Bennett, designer of transformations, author of her own story. The night air was cool on my skin as we walked home through Milan's ancient streets. Above us, stars sparkled like sequins on silk, and ahead of us stretched a future as limitless as imagination itself. I had stepped onto that runway as one woman and walked off it as another. Or perhaps, more accurately, I had finally walked off it as myself.